Welcome back to the WatchTower podcast, the film review podcast by cinema lovers for cinema lovers. We are live from our studio in El Paso, Texas, the TowerCast studio. It's so good to always be back here, man. And we've been trying to get this episode together forever, man. Just shit has gone south in one way or another, but we're back. And
hey, I have an emergency. I have to go.
Let's keep it going, guys. I do want to ask something before we get into this episode. Even before I introduce my fellow guests and myself, please take some time to subscribe to our YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Somebody asked me a Stitcher. Have you guys ever heard of Stitcher?
Yeah.
Apparently somebody listens to us on Stitcher, so thank you for that. You're on Stitcher. Cool. So yeah, go check it out. We just dropped the Javier Gonzalez episode. It was an awesome conversation with Javier, man. He's a cool dude, so go check that out if you haven't. But please subscribe. It takes 2 seconds. It helps us out. It helps us out a ton. So please take some time to subscribe to our podcast.
Prescribe to the medicine known as the Tower Podcast.
Cinema. Right.
Simba.
Simba.
I am your fellow host, Carlos Autor, giving you a writing directing perspective. I am joined by my fellow co-host, Mr. Michael Lalao, offering a cinematography perspective.
Cinematography all around, gentlemen.
Absolutely. You got a lot to talk about here. And there's
Too much to talk about.
There's something that I want to get your notes on.
Do.
Who else?
Mr. John Eric Castro, giving us an acting perspective amongst many other things.
Yes, this is me, and I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, that
I swear Castro
genuine.
always asks the best questions on either of our podcasts, and I think it's great.
I do.
Last but certainly not least.
Can we check out the new Austin cam?
Whoa!
Oh,
Can you do the effect? Whoa.
No.
Let's do a vertigo effect then. Fine, at the very least, just
Can you
like
just make the screen spin?
Yeah, just like
One little rotation.
Austin T. Young.
What's the T stand for?
I can't say
Tyrone.
publicly.
No, I think I know. Isn't it Tyrone?
It's not Tyrone.
No, it's not Tyrone.
But he's making sure we're sounding good on the ones and twos. And we never thank Austin for editing this podcast, but
Thank you,
Austin
Austin.
edits this podcast amongst producing it, amongst engineering it. So
By
thank
the way,
you,
aren't
Austin.
we I think we're 2 or 3 episodes away from being at 100 podcasts, combining the
Really?
two.
I always thought of this
Ooh.
day like when we hit 100.
We gotta talk about doing some special for the 50th WatchTower
WatchTower.
episode, right? Because that's coming up. I think this is like 48 or something. Maybe not. Maybe less.
I thought it's 45, 46.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's like 40. But we're getting close. So
Yeah.
let's do something
We're
special.
definitely-
Wait, I think this is the 100th.
No way.
Because Javier was 56 and Babylon was 43.
Oh,
So that's
I'm way
99.
off then.
So this would be
This is the 100th. Well, yeah, like the law says,
Combined.
100th combined. So
That's still an achievement.
yeah, congratulations. And we're also gearing up to go to Las Cruces. So stay tuned for that because that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure this is premiering before Cruces, right? Maybe not. I think so. Might
I don't
premiere
know.
during, right?
Well,
Yeah, I
can
think
you say
during.
who the guests are?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking to Giancarlo Esposito. We're going to be talking to a lot of great people from the feature film, like the featured film of the festival. It includes people like Anna Gunn. I know Matt Dillon comes out in the film. I don't know if he's going to be in the festival just yet, but hopefully he'll be there and we can talk to him. We're going to be talking to Kevin Reynolds, who directed Waterworld with Kevin Costner. We're going to be talking to a lot of really cool people. But Giancarlo Esposito, if you might know him from Breaking Bad, from The Mandalorian,
Exactly.
or the Star Wars universe in general.
Doesn't he have a new one coming out though?
Yeah, Kaleidoscope is out,
Yeah, there we go.
and he's also going to be in the new Maxine.
Oh, he's gonna be a Maxine.
He's going to be in Maxine. Maxine is the third of the X and Pearl trilogy,
Universe.
A24 universe thing. So he's killing it, man. So we're going to be talking to Giancarlo. It's going to be really cool. So tune in for that one. But today on the WatchTower, that's on TowerCast. Right now, you're here for WatchTower. You're here to listen to us talk about cinema and hopefully contribute something to the conversation through the comment section or suggesting other films that we should review. Today, we're going to talk about a really special trilogy that nobody cares about, and it's a shame. It's a big shame. Anytime I get a pick, I try to get something
Really
that
curated.
people, really curated that people just forget about or don't give enough importance to.
like
And the
that.
people who do give enough importance to it are like hardcore cinema lovers, and that's what this podcast is all about, right? So
Absolutely.
Dude, I'm one of those guys that I never thought cinema passed from like United States.
Like cinema.
When I was like 10 years old,
Yeah,
English or
Just like,
Spanish.
oh man, all the way to India, all the way.
Yeah. No.
and to be fair, like we take cinema for granted, man. Like, sure, we popularized it and we made it its own unique thing that other people like love, like
Yeah.
other countries emulate, including the guy we're going to talk about today. But like, there's so much cinema outside of this freaking country that's
Absolutely, man.
amazing.
Yeah.
That needs to be talked about. But you were going to say something, Alo?
No, I was just gonna say that it's films like this that are really incredible because you see the influence they have
Yeah.
for cinema lovers and directors. Like, well, I'll let you announce it and then I'll kind of continue.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Satyajit Ray's Apu Trilogy. A lot of the information that I got gearing up for this podcast came from this book and came from this book. I didn't finish this one full just yet, but this is called My Years with Apu, and it's his first collective of films. And the first one, Panchali, was his first feature film ever that he directed, and what a massive way to come out.
I still don't believe it, man.
Yeah.
The photography is just like, whoa.
But Satyajit Ray, he's a legend, and I guarantee you that your favorite director's favorite director was inspired by him. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's the massive thing to do. You know, this guy won awards. This trilogy specifically won awards at Cannes, coming right out the gate. It won the Golden Lion Award 3 years running at the Venice Film Festival. Satyajit Ray got an honorary Oscar in his deathbed. His films, this trilogy, the Apu Trilogy, including a few of his other films, have been highly regarded in the Sight and Sound poll, in Time's best films of all time, in the 1001 films before you die, Roger Ebert's top films of all time.
Wow.
As in the collection of films, in the list of films, this is something that everybody must watch, quote unquote.
And they judge all three of them the same? It's a
No,
collection, a
typically
trilogy?
it's not like Kill Bill, right? Typically they do like separate them because when they separate them, each one has a different rating. Pather Panchali tends to be the highest rated one, the first one. But a lot of people do, like the Sight and Sound poll in 1 year, I think 92, made it one thing and kind of rated it as one thing.
Yeah. That's how I'm going to rate it, or how we're going to rate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can.
No, I was just gonna say that after watching it,
Yeah.
I mean, like Wes Anderson being my favorite director,
Ooh,
and then
yeah.
us seeing the film and then watching the Apu Trilogy, like you just see all those little like nuggets where the kid on the shoulders and the music, the tonality, the
stylistic.
texture, and especially for like Darjeeling Limited, which is my personal favorite from like Anderson's collection.
Yeah.
It was directly inspired from all this.
Indian cinema.
It's
and
crazy.
Satyajit.
So,
That's true.
One thing to point out about Satyajit is that what's really, really important, that I'll say the first, like if you learn one thing from this podcast, it's that Satyajit Ray is such an inspirational figure because he single-handedly basically recreated Indian cinema.
What do you mean by that? Like, it was
So
going in a
Indian
different
cinema
direction or
before Satyajit Ray were basically musical dramas, and that's all they were. Literally, they were based on old plays, or they were shot like old plays, or they were just like these quirky musicals that stayed in the Bengali kind of aspect of cinema. They didn't really go out of that shell because that's what sold.
That's what sold back then.
And Satyajit Ray got inspired by Italian neorealism, specifically Bicycle Thieves, and then turned around and made, saw Jacques Demy pictures and saw Federico Fellini pictures and saw Vittorio De Sica, who's the director of Bicycle Thieves, and then he met Jean Renoir, who changed his life. Jean Renoir is a French filmmaker. Most famously, he has a big library of amazing films too. I'm sure we'll talk about him at some point, but he made a film called The River.
The River.
And The River was shot in India. This is regarded, by the way, fun fact, it's on Martin Scorsese's top 10 of all time for him, The River.
Ooh. When was that one? In 19...
Jean Renoir, it was right before, so 40s?
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
40s, 50s was when Jean Renoir was really hitting it.
Before the trilogy, okay.
Yeah. The crazy part about it all is Satyajit worked on that film basically as a PA. And he connected with John
Snuck in
Renard.
there, yeah.
And what happened was he was working at an advertising agency, and he met John Renard and was a fan and was like, "Hey man, I'm about to direct my first thing. Like I'm nervous. I don't know what to do." And John Renard like really took him under his shoulder, you know, like under his.
That's what you need sometimes.
Yeah, and like he really helped him. Like this is what you have. Like Sayajit was like, I have this idea for a film. I don't think I'm gonna do it. And it was this. It was a Path for Panchali, the first of the Apu Trilogy, and he just went with it, man. And John Renard was just a huge inspiration to him. He kind of kicked him up and just like, you really need to just shoot your film, man. You're a filmmaker, you know.
He didn't tell him like, don't write something about your life yet.
No.
You went straight forward, like, tell something.
The weird thing about the Apu Trilogy is it's a blend of two things.
Okay.
It's a blend of a novel. It's based on a novel. And the name is really too complicated for me to read. It's an Indian name.
I think we all want to try it.
It has two B's at the beginning of the. It's a weird thing. I can't pronounce it, but it's based on a novel, very famous classic novel for India. But what he did is the first. It's basically two books, and the first book is almost a play-by-play. What happened was he worked at this advertising agency. The publisher hired the advertising agency to draw a cover. And the guy that was in charge of drawing the cover was Sayajit Ray.
Okay.
And so he drew the cover of the book, and then he read it, and he was like, well, it's a classic, right? Everybody in India knows it. And he was like, this would be a really good film. So the novel, the basically 2/3 of it is the first film. The last section of the first book is the second film. And then the first section of the second book is the third film. And he just used bits and portions of it.
Okay.
But he gives it total credit. He based it on that. And then the other thing that's a blend in there is his personal life and his upbringing.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of those two things. It's based on a novel and his personal life.
I mean, that's Hollywood, right? We all do that, right?
Yeah, I think so
Mix it
too,
all
right?
together.
A little autobiographical. But yeah, the Apu Trilogy is just this amazing collection that you guys need to go check out. It's everywhere on Criterion, HBO Max, and a bunch of places. And this thing inspired the likes of Martin Scorsese, Wes Anderson, Akira Kurosawa. Can you imagine somebody who inspires Akira Kurosawa? Akira Kurosawa submitted a film into Venice Film Festival once. It was the same year that Sayajit was there. And he lost to Sayajit. And later, Akira Kurosawa's daughter basically like found a note where Akira was like, he deserved to win. Like there's no, and he ended up regarding the film as one of his favorites of all time.
Oh, that's probably more than just the award, dude. That means
Right.
more, yeah.
So like, but again, he didn't get recognition until his deathbed, at least internationally. He got an honorary Oscar presented by, it was either Audrey Hepburn or Shirley MacLaine, somebody really big. And they presented the Oscar virtually. He was literally on his deathbed holding the Oscar. I think he died a couple months later.
That's how legends are made, dude.
Yeah,
Those myths,
yeah.
like,
But
in his death
the crazy part
It
about
was Audrey Hepburn.
it was Audrey Hepburn. Yeah, so she, she presented the Oscar to him like virtually, like I said.
That's nice.
He was in Calcutta. He died in Calcutta. And the crazy part of the Apu Trilogy is the '90s really is what pushed it into international success, because sure, it did well. It went to Cannes. It won all these awards in its time. And then he made a plethora of other fucking amazing films. I've only gotten to see like maybe 3 more of his films. The Music Room is a terrific picture. 2 is a short film on YouTube. It's called 2. It's fucking great. But anyways, the 90s. What happens is, this is where Scorsese, Spielberg start to, and George Lucas form an organization called the Film Foundation to preserve cinema. And to find old reels to be able to preserve film.
Yeah.
Back in the day, especially up until the 40s, there was different types of celluloid. And most of it was super flammable. And not only was it super flammable, it would degenerate easily. It would just fucking like turn into dust after a few years if it's not preserved correctly.
The right way, yeah.
So Scorsese knew this, and Scorsese knew that we had lost 70% of the silent film era. Lost forever. Never to be seen again. 70% of the silent era is lost forever. That sucks, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like he was like, we got to change this shit. You know, obviously now digital makes life easier, but his goal is to just find old film stocks and preserve them.
He started it.
They basically, everybody recognized, like, why aren't we talking about Sayaji Ray? He just died. Like, what the fuck are we doing? They got his film stocks and took him to a lab in London and in hopes to preserve them. That lab, that archive, burnt up.
No way.
So the Apu Trilogy, the original negatives, were burned.
Wow.
And thankfully, the Academy was able to get those film stocks, rehydrate them, and restore them, and fix them and save them.
The burnt ones?
The original.
Also, you can
Yeah.
kind
I think-
of fix it.
I think you
It depends how
mentioned-
bad they are, right? You know?
I think you mentioned that's why there's certain scenes that.
Yeah.
that
Oh,
there's-
for real?
Yeah, like there's certain scenes that the texture's
Flare-ups,
different and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff because.
And I don't know if it's had like a 4K restore or anything like that, like we can do now, but I do know that it was highly like restored. And yeah, they were able to rehydrate the film and frame by frame, fix frame by frame.
I started with a score for it. Now it's gone up.
So this is why like this is important to me because this happened to George Méliès too. Most of his films are lost forever. And the films that they were able to preserve, again, shitty stocks with different colors, different aspects because they were reproducing them manually. You know, so like Sayaji Ray was a little bit a part of that. American cinema never really appreciated Sayaji until way later, to the point where he never made a film in the States because he got robbed. I'm gonna open with this anecdote because Austin loves this story.
I almost have it.
And it's kind of a shame that nobody knows it.
Yeah.
So Sayaji Ray was in the States, was in LA for something like 6 months in talks with all the studios because he got big off the Apur Trilogy and the States wanted a piece of that because foreign cinema was blowing up and Roman Polanski was making films and fucking like all these directors were hitting, you know, high numbers in the States. So
People were
they thought, let's
interested.
bring this dude out. He's obviously got some popularity. So they brought him out. He took a few meetings. Ended up taking a meeting with Paramount and taking a specific script to them. The script that he took was based on a comic book / magazine entry that he wrote 10 years before he took this script or wrote this script called The Alien.
Oh, I'm out of this.
I think it's called The Alien, if I'm not mistaken. It's called The Alien. And he took the script, and no, it's not Alien. But he took the script and then nobody really went for it. And he was like, all right, well, maybe we'll come up with another idea later down the line. He goes back to Calcutta and 2 years later, E.T. comes out.
Oh, so you missed that little alien wave.
When you see Satyajit's storyboards, they might be in one of these books. If I can find them, I'll show you guys. When you see his storyboards, when you read the script, it's E.T.
I want to read it now, dude.
It's E.T. It's fucking E.T.
I think
And-
he was even advised to like sue Spielberg at
Yeah.
some point.
He was advised.
No, there's
it
a
was too
whole
similar.
like hour video of him ranting about this on YouTube. And he's not being a dick about it. He's just like, this is what happened. This is my theory. This was my side of the story. I don't blame Steven. He says, I don't blame Steven. He's an amazing filmmaker. He made an amazing body of work based on false context that this script was floating around. He's like, I know for a fact. And he like is able to trace it back to who did it.
I was gonna say it, huh?
Yeah, no, he proved it, dude. He was like, my script was floating around Hollywood 2 years before E.T. came out, and Paramount bought, you know.
So it must have
yeah.
crossed his hands. He must have gotten a little.
Yeah, so E.T. was directly a film that could have been made by Satyajit Ray. And Spielberg has gone on record to being like, if that is true, I never knew about it. I was just assigned a film to make.
And
you know.
Steven Spielberg didn't like this director. Was he?
No, he loves Satyajit Ray. He's one of the guys who, like I said, started the Film Foundation.
But you
And-
didn't give him credit for this one.
No.
He stuck to his.
I
gun that it
mean,
was his
he
own.
couldn't, right? Because then that would kind of disqualify
Yeah,
him a
exactly,
little bit,
yeah.
right? I think that's my theory.
No, yeah.
But no, he never did. But he has gone on record to say that Satyajit Ray,
That's
it was a hero to him, you know?
That's crazy.
So just to give you an example, after that instance happened to Satyajit, he never made a film in the States again. Or he never even considered it. He's like, I'm not going to do the Hollywood route
Just
because
'cause
they
it's-
fucked you
yeah,
over.
yeah.
You know, he learned that fast.
That fast,
And again, man, he was this hero in India and especially in cinema. He created what cinema became. It was him. Akira Kurosawa said something along the no, not Akira Kurosawa. Roger Ebert said something along the lines of, "There's nobody in cinema that has single-handedly affected their country that fast." on what cinema is going to become.
That's heavy.
This is big, man, especially now when like Indian filmmakers are fucking great, some of the best in the world, and that industry wouldn't have existed there if Satyajit wouldn't have happened, you know. So just to give you a big background, I'm gonna like go off on Satyajit and so you guys know who he is, but the Apu Trilogy was his first thing, and it's very special, and there's a reason why. So that's what we're gonna talk about, right? So ratings. Long-winded way to go into ratings.
I'll start mine.
Thank God.
So you said we're treating this as a collective, right? Like,
As a collective, all
Well,
three of
I
them.
think we've done for other trilogies, but
or we can do like what we did for the Oscars, is like spend 20 minutes on each, or I don't know.
Well, what I was gonna say is that what we've done for each of our like trilogies or kind of collective episodes, is we'll give a rating for each film, and then we'll give a rating for like the whole.
Oh, okay.
We can, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys want.
But I think mine's probably gonna be more geared towards the whole, just because.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's this one. I'll just say that it didn't feel like a bunch of very different films.
No,
it
because
felt
it was
like
It's a consistent.
when you
yeah.
told me
continuous
about
story.
it,
Continuous.
I think you told me that the first time you watched it, it was all in one sitting, and it easily can be because of
That was
how.
during the pandemic.
6
though,
hours.
I mean.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
Lonely.
I don't judge you
know.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bottle of Jack. And anyway, no,
What?
but the story continues on just very fluidly. It's such a beautiful kind of organization. But
So do you want to?
I'd say let's go all together.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Okay.
I'm cool with that.
Because like the first one, the second one wasn't that good. I mean,
Yo, Mama's not that good.
no, it was like I had to continue the first one, and the third one was pretty good. That's why I'm like,
Okay.
you know,
I
it's
got
one of those.
I got you.
But overall, I started with a 7, just because I saw it's like I always bring it back to basketball. It's like watching an old basketball game. I respect it, I love it, and stuff like that. But after hearing you guys talk about it, and then what he did, like that first movie for 4 years, not touching the camera.
Oh man, that
And then most of them weren't actors, and he had to teach them, and
Yeah.
he still came through with something really special.
Yeah.
I'll probably bump it up to 8.
8.
Yeah,
Alright.
just what exactly for what he did for India.
Yeah. Cool. 8.
Oh man. It's one of those series or trilogies that because there's so much subtlety in it, I think on the onset you really don't know how much or what you're looking at, and then it's after you've seen it all and it sits with you and you can think about the intentionality and the care put into it. It really grew on me. It's one of those that easily after we finished, I wanted to see it again, and I wanted to dive more into each particular moment in each of the films. I honestly, starting rating, I was gonna go for like an 8.5, but I think I'll give it a 9.
9.
Fair.
Just because I thought it was really solid, and it's one of those few series that you could start one film and then watch the rest, and it's just like nothing's passed. It captivates you so much. You can't stop on one, which is funny because the first time we watched it, we stopped on one, and then Austin and I were both like, okay, so when's 2? And then it's like, we'll figure it out, and then we just had this big pause.
Yeah.
But you really have to go through the whole thing, and that's
The respect down.
9. Fair. I'm with you.
That was a little.
No. I'm with you. I'm just really thinking about what I'm gonna say, but I'm with you. I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is the 3rd time I watched the trilogy, and I feel very, very differently
each time.
each time, and it's so polarizing, man. The whole experience. I'll get into it with my rating, but Austin, do you have a rating?
Oh, I thought you said yours was 9.
No, I said you. I was repeating you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what was your rating?
The same.
But what was
Who's on first?
I don't know.
going
Yeah, I
next.
think that's what he said, but go for it.
Who's on first?
But who's on second?
I just work here.
Wait, you're getting paid?
What's your rating,
For the whole thing or for the
Yeah.
first one?
brother? For the whole thing.
Have you been listening?
Yeah, of course. For the whole thing, the whole trilogy.
Oh no, he's doing his cheeky thing, isn't he?
No,
I have cheeks.
he legitimately wasn't listening.
It's like when a teacher calls you up in class, bro.
42.
Delaware.
Delaware.
Vegas.
He's trying to come out with something, dude.
I guess I'll give my rating.
No,
while
no, legitimately for the whole trilogy.
Yes.
I give it a 10.
Wow.
I thought it was perfect. Genuinely.
And
Yeah.
what do you give it?
I'd be at a 9.5. I'd be at a 9.5. The reason it doesn't get a 10 is because...
Yeah, I was gonna.
Well, okay, let's point out the good things about it, right?
Yeah.
What happens with me is like, I think you guys might have felt the same way. And by the way, I hope you guys have a perspective there, because the first time I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time you watch it, or the first time I watched it, you walk out feeling like, oh, it was good. But what was so special about it? Why are people putting it in this high regard? Because to me, it's like all the cinematic kind of qualities are stuff we see every day. It's coverage. It's you know what I mean? In terms of the photography, it's like, okay, it's all right. It looks really pretty, but it's
especially the first one. It's very
nothing,
formula. And it's like OTS.
And then.
Or not.
No. But it's definitely that, right? And then you get into like, well, even the story's pretty simple, right? We get it's Boyhood broken up into 3 films, essentially, to a certain degree, right? But you know, it's like, okay, interesting. And then when you start doing research about it, because it didn't leave me alone. Like,
you wanted to find out
what's up with this, and it wasn't how it was made necessarily. What got me was like filmmakers are basically saying like. Filmmakers I really admire were pointing out where its beauty comes from, and I was looking for some deep thing, reflective thing, and that's really just its beauty comes from its simplicity, in the sense that it's pure cinema. It's not trying to pull out all the bells and whistles to tell a story, because the story is already so compelling. And then the more mature he gets as a filmmaker, the better the cinematic tropes get, right? Because by the time we get to the third film, he used some amazing cinematic. The
last one, dude.
You know, so like, it's like, oh, so it's just pure cinema. It's not documentary. It's not pointing a camera at something, but it's structuring something that's special on its own without having to justify why it's so special. It's just special. It's just pure cinema that hasn't been tainted by something that you could, like, for instance, anytime we talk about like 1917, right? It's like, what's tainted because it's gimmicky, and it's not trying to tell its story. It's trying to tell a story in a gimmicky way.
Okay.
You know, or when we talk about what the tropes are of like an action series, or like a comedy action series, or a bad comedy, or a bad rom-com.
Okay.
It has these tropes that exist because that's formulaic, and it's been tainted by the bad side of cinema. This hasn't, because it wasn't trying to compete with anything. It wasn't trying to set up a formula. It wasn't trying to... Sure, it was inspired by Italian neorealism, but that's kind of the beautiful thing about Italian neorealism, is it's not trying to impress anybody. It's just trying to be this simple story. It's just trying to be this simple way of storytelling.
So what do you think his goal was?
I think his goal was to give perspective on his culture, his people, his story in a way that he appreciated, which was Italian neorealism, because it hadn't been done before.
Okay.
You know, it hadn't been done before. What had been done before in his country, in cinema in his country, was these musicals that were overdone.
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of it. And then you're like, once you pick up on that, you're like, okay. And then the second time you see it, you're like, oh man. And then after you see it the second time, this is what happened to me. I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like, I knew Apu, and I knew Aparna, and I knew them. I knew what their wants were.
Wow.
I knew what they're like. And then you just start thinking about it. And then I think after the second time I screened it, I started reading this book. It's called Portrait of a Director, and it's his biography on Satyajit. And then you start realizing that this man, though as sophisticated as he was, because you will hear him talk, like, he's very decisive. He knows what he wants. He was a go-getter, man. He composed most of his early films. The Apu Trilogy did have a composer, but like, he composed a lot of songs. He sat with the composer to say like, hey, dude, I know how to play this stuff too, so this is exactly what I want. He was able to sit with each department head and really pull this out. He was able to sit with non-actors for the first one and like really carve out the space he wanted. He was able to get the money for this thing in almost an impossible note. So like, he wasn't Robert Rodriguezing it, where he's just like, I'm doing everything, but he was able to delegate these roles without even knowing how to, and still making one of the most special films of all time. So like, when you do research on the man after you realize why this is so special, it's like, oh, shit, man, why aren't you talked about more? You know, like I got into this rabbit hole. And then the third time I screened it with you guys, I was like, I was half convinced that you guys were going to be like my first reaction was just like, okay, what about it? Like not seeing the beauty of, because again,
I mean, that's the beauty of it, but
yeah.
I was just kind of like, okay, I'm pretty sure these guys are going to tell me stuff that I missed.
Yeah. But that's the weird factor of it. To describe just pure cinema, what you define as pure cinema. To me, pure cinema is storytelling without it being self-aware that it's storytelling.
Yeah.
That's what pure cinema is to me. And that's what Satyajit Ray was. And I haven't seen, I don't know, half of his films yet. But what I have seen, I can state, like, he's not trying to be a storyteller. He just is.
I still got to figure what that means.
I know. It's a weird thing to describe.
Saying,
I can't, like...
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm trying to figure out what that vibe is, whatever.
So that's why I'm at a 9.5. That 0.5 is just, again, having the unfortunate/fortunate aspect of being exposed to other cinema that came after him.
Yeah.
And not realizing, look,
because that's where I'm at.
Not realizing that, like, he kind of invented half of this shit.
What do you mean?
Half of the shit we consider normal in storytelling.
So
like
he kind of like...
He was kind of one of the big pioneers of it all. So, like, it's hard to be like, oh, it's so simple. It's just close up here, wide there, camera there. Like, but it's like, no, dude, that, like,
he had an eye for it, man.
That stuff wasn't used this way, especially in his type of cinema. So, anyways, it's just that weird spot where, like, that 0.5 was just like, I was exposed to, like, everything else that came after it that just...
So did he write it, direct it, and then...
Produced it?
Camera up, he had somebody else, he taught somebody else?
No, so that's a funny thing about...
The first one was 4 years. So
Apur Panchali came about while he was still working at an advertising agency.
Yeah.
And again, he was making the books thing, and then he wrote the script. Although there wasn't really a full-fledged out script, it was more storyboards than anything. That's what the script was his storyboards.
I like that.
He worked with... He specifically set out to cast non-actors. He was able to get a little bit of money just from saving for the first half. And then he ran out of money halfway through the shoot. And what he did, just to get 3 more days of shooting time, was he pawned his wife's jewelry. And his wife let him. His wife his wife supported him. He pawned her jewelry just to get 3 more days of shooting. And then he had to wait a year before he could continue shooting the film. What happened was... This is a great thing. No, he did, legitimately. His big worry was the old lady's going to die. She didn't.
She was sick?
No, she was just 90. like she was, and she's a massive part of the story, right?
The whole time you're watching the film, you always feel this kind of like, I hope she's okay.
Yes. She's so fragile and like,
especially in the scenes where she's like, I'm gonna go off on my own now. You're like, please don't. Like,
you're gonna fall over and die.
I know.
I thought I was the only one, but yeah.
Also, like again, she was a non-actress. You know, like I think
but that's perfect for her role. You know,
yeah. No, like, and he like her only thing was like, I'll do it and I'm happy to act, but you got to pay for my taxi to and from my village. Like that's it. That's all. That was her condition.
And that was pretty expensive for him, I bet you too.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the budget, right? So what happened was a year later, the Bengali government got involved, and there was a senator or governor, forget who he was. I was just reading about him, who basically he was a big curator of art and culture, and what he did for like India, and specifically Calcutta and Bengali, he like basically came down, saw what was going on and was like, why haven't you finished the film? Like, this looks really great. And he was like, I don't have the money. Okay. So he went back to his council or whatever, and basically said like, hey, we're gonna need some money for road improvements.
Nah.
Swear.
That's like a dream, dude.
And that money
to have your government lie so you can get money.
Exactly, bro.
Satyajit straight up told him like, you're not gonna see your investment back. This isn't an investment. Like, you're not going to see your money back.
Even when he was desperate, he told them the straight up truth.
And they were like, "This is an investment in art. This is something we're going to be able to show our country for."
Come on, El Paso.
So essentially, the government was. It wasn't like he was doing something under the table.
Yeah.
They just named it road improvements to be cheeky because the original book is called something like The Road of Apu or something like that. Like the road.
Was like the budget.
No, it was literally that. It was literally just to be cheeky about the name.
Oh, okay.
So, but the money, they knew the money was going to film production.
Right.
So they take this film production money.
Nice.
They were able to finish the film. And what happened was there was I think that same governor took the film there was somebody from New York that came to see this film, like saw what was happening.
Right.
And he was the guy that was in charge of the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA. And basically he was going to start this new world culture exhibit. And he was like, can I show your film at this culture exhibit? So in the States, and really its world premiere happened in New York.
That was his world premiere?
That was the world premiere of the film in MoMA, this highbrow museum in New York. And after that, they started getting some traction. He submitted the film to Cannes as I think it's called Voice of a Country, the subgenre of Cannes that he won. And after it won Cannes, it just fucking blew up and his career blew up. And you know what's funny about Satyajit is part of the long shooting time was he was working a full-time job and feeding his family.
Oh, también.
He was like us, right? Working full-time during the day, making films at night. That's really what it was.
It was the best human document.
Best human document. That was the subgenre.
Best human document.
And he won that at Cannes, and it just
prestige.
blew it up, right? What's funny about Satyajit is he never intended to make a sequel.
Oh, okay, that's what I asked you too. Like,
much less make 3 films.
Yeah.
So before we talk about,
so it did have a different ending in the first one, or
no, it's just that was going to be it. They move out of this place where they just went through so much.
Yeah.
So Aparajito, which is the second installment in the film in the trilogy, essentially he wasn't planning on making it. He got confident for the first one, the success of the first one. He's like, all right, I guess I got to keep telling this story. At that point, he got with a studio. He got money for it.
Nice.
And it was until he was getting ready to prep the next film that he quit his job at the agency.
He was like, I'm out, man. This is going to work.
Yeah. Isn't that the dream?
Yeah,
I mean, like we're getting there.
Jeez, but also,
going up to Jason, tell him, yo, you're on your own.
Oh my god, dude! But it's always impressive when you hear these stories and you're hearing it like at such a fundamental time in cinema where there's no backing. Like right now, the reason we all have that dream, the reason we're able to like follow this is because we're seeing people like the A24 communities and all that kind of stuff, where a director makes one really good film and they have enough people that believe in their passion and they're able to like excel them, you know, into this legendary status. But I mean, at a time when you're doing it for this genuine love of cinema and you're telling this story that's just so close held to like the culture and everything, and that just you feel like there's something really special about this, and I think to have that kind of faith afterwards. I mean,
that's where really the purest for me comes from, is like people who just love cinema and want to contribute.
Or me, just that he did it. Like he picked it up and was like, all right, I've been writing the script. Yeah. It's not really a script like you said, but let's shoot for the stars.
Yeah, and I love that you break it down as this purity element, because when you watch the film, and hopefully everybody's going to go and watch the film, at least Panther and Panchali.
Panther Panchali. Mm-hmm.
That one, I mean...
I think that, just so people know, Panther Panchali is the Indian title translated, obviously, but it means...
What does it mean?
It means... It's because the last one is Apur Sansar. That's World of Apu. The second one is Aparajito, which basically means like unbreakable or something like that. And the first one, Panther Panchali, means...
Song of the Little Road.
Song of the Little Road. That's why the road's important.
There we go.
So it's the name of the book.
Song of the Little Road.
Panther Panchali. Song of the Little Road.
Panther Panchali.
Yes.
If you would watch at least that one, you'll see that there's this beautiful...
I don't know why that's everybody's favorite. I'm just going to say that right now.
No, because you know what
it wasn't mine, but...
I'll say this. I'll say this. It's this it's a coming of age, but it doesn't feel like a coming of age because I think that whole genre has been played into like this stereotype sphere.
I feel like the second one is more of a coming of age than the first one is.
But like the first one, well, because you know
you're just a passenger.
The second one is more coming of age.
But no, I'm with you. And the first one, like even Apu is just a passenger in this life. Like
Yeah.
he's just taking us to his world. There's
His perspective.
There's nothing he
like-
wants out of this. He's just this wide-eyed kid who sees his
Yeah.
sister and everything that happens in that. Just everything. Just he's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
you're just in his seat for a little
And
bit.
you're just kind
And the
of
mother
like
seat.
viewing the general struggles of like
Yeah.
the parents and the simple struggles, but the big struggles to us about maintaining image and maintaining face and having that. I know that these people, like, I don't know what they could offer me in the future, but if my name gets tarnished and I can no longer
Right.
talk to them because I'm now a thief or I'm a low mother and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like, how's that going to affect me? And I mean,
And by the way, it
Those-
seems like to a certain degree, Apur Panchali is a little more about the mom than it is about anybody else.
Yeah.
oh, and
Right.
also the daughter. I mean,
The sister, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, her story ends there. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen
but
the
it
film,
starts
go
and
see
ends there because I
Yeah.
mean, we also see her birth. No.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. No, I think we just see Apu, like he's the
Yeah.
baby.
Really?
Do we see
Yeah.
her?
I thought we saw her from like the very beginning, and then shortly after we see Apu come in.
No, we do see her like grow up because she's like a toddler when
Yeah.
Apu is born,
Yeah.
and then we kind of see her in the next stage.
Yeah.
I think so.
But yeah, no, I agree, man. I think the purity comes out of like Scorsese basically said, and this is one of those statements that makes me feel like I was born in the wrong. I always feel like I was born in the wrong era, and the Scorsese said something so simple that made me feel like a first world asshole, you know, because like he basically said like when I was first exposed to the cinema of Satyajit Ray, it was the first time I ever got to see Indian cinema, like in the Indian culture. Because now we have National Geographic and now we have all this shit that like shows us this when we're 5. You know, like so now it's so easy to
It's
see
easy,
other
yeah,
people.
back
So we can
then-
go on YouTube and be like, Indian culture, what is it?
Yeah.
And there's docs about it, there's this about back then that just wasn't that. So
Yeah.
like this was almost a documentary where it's just like this is just the simple life of a village and people
True,
living in this
true,
village.
true,
and
true.
and to Scorsese, that was like, whoa, I've never seen this before.
And
To
it's-
us, it's like, I have seen this before, just in a different way.
No, but
Yeah,
even then,
that's
it's,
where I was coming at. So I'm like,
Also,
gotta
like,
respect it.
there's films like Nanook of the North, which you know
Oh, yeah.
it's people.
This
that take,
film is always compared to Nanook.
Oh shit!
really
Apur Panchali is always compared to Nanook of the North.
Give us a little bit of what is Nuke of the North?
okay. So in film school, when we studied documentary cinema, they always talk about Nanook of the North being this very foundational
Groundbreaking.
film.
From where?
It is though.
It
It's pretty
is.
great.
From where? From where?
It's an American film,
Yeah.
but it's this guy who went and he covered the Inuit people.
Yeah.
In like
What we know as the Eskimos, essentially.
Eskimos.
I mean,
the Eskimos, basically.
Oh, you
And-
know,
Yeah,
we saw it. I'm
yeah.
sure we saw it in the same
And-
yeah,
place.
with Greg Bean.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's
what
what
happens
Bean
is that
When they're
they-
living in the little.
yeah, and what happens at the
I
filmmaker
saw it with
is
Robert, I think.
I saw it with Greg
the
Bean.
filmmaker shows these moments in time with the Eskimo people, the Inuits, and they go out and they're hunting seals,
Yeah.
and then they also like bring it back and they have their family and they all sit together and all that. And though it opened up the doors for like I guess kind of like cinema and documentary style,
Documentary
and
specifically.
narrative,
Yeah.
Narrative documentary.
narrative
Like,
documentary, like
Yeah.
you know it going somewhere, not just being like these raw footage,
But telling a story.
It's
through
telling a
documentary.
story. But
Because, by the way, let's
Yeah.
face it. I always say the French invented cinema because they did. That's just a fact. And when the French invented cinema, technically cinema was only documentary. They pointed a camera at a factory and people walking out of it. They pointed a camera at a train coming into a station.
Yeah.
And that was the first 10 seconds of cinema ever
And that
recorded.
was like,
So yeah, that was this groundbreaking thing, right? So like documentary cinema was narrative, was cinema.
yeah, it was
kicked off,
what cinema
you know?
was.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And Nanook was just this almost like the first feature that had a story to it. And we do follow specifically Nanook
yeah,
and kind of
even though that wasn't his name, and that's
Yeah.
the kind of point I was getting to. That what it opens up is a story, but the filmmaker basically instructs them like how to move, how to act,
Yeah.
how to be.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Narrative,
like
yeah.
one part was that they all eat together as a family inside their igloo. But naturally, for that culture, they were used to like one guy would have like 4 or 5 women, and then he'd sleep
But
with all of them, and
I'm
they
glad
didn't
you-
believe in this
yeah.
like family unit thing, but they crafted it.
But I'm glad you bring it up because when I was first exposed to Nanook in the North, it was like, dude, I didn't know this much about this culture, and it's kind of eye opening, and it's like it feels like this old film, but it's also like preserving history in a way. So like that's why they compare it to Pather Panchali, because I think most people when they first saw it thought it was a documentary.
Yeah.
You know?
And because I think that comes in from all the non-actors
Yeah.
and the dialogue,
The
and
authenticity of it all.
the way the actions are played through. I think there's also this really interesting element in blocking, because we're so used to that today. I mean, watch any TV show or any film, and you'll see that there's a camera that's already in the right position, and the characters walk in their perfect little path, and they pan, and everything looks clean. It almost looks
let me like
clinical.
when they're chasing the sweet seller. You know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sequence is just so great. And there's nothing special going on. They're just following around the ice cream truck, dude. Like, that's really all that's going on. But, like, the purity. Talk about cinematic magicians, by the way. This is a great thing on cinematography. You guys remember the scene where the sister was chasing the fireflies?
Yeah.
Film stock at the time couldn't capture that.
Oh.
Those aren't real fireflies.
Oh,
I was gonna say.
What they are is literally
painted on.
No,
I'm trying to think.
Satya G literally picked out his like bravest crew members, dressed them in black, and had them carry a light.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
The little
that's what I was thinking.
replicating of fucking firefly, and they were just so this was just all.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like it's because film stock wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
He was ahead of film stock. You know what I'm saying? Like he was ahead. He was wanting to capture.
Again, he's just so foundation.
Yeah.
But it's just really.
I'm trying to think of this. That's crazy.
The second one, which I think we should move on to, unless you guys have anything else to say about the first one.
I mean, I'm still talking about like the series because
I don't care. We're at 45 minutes. This is the only reason I'm saying.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we want to
I
move
love
on to
hearing
the
this
next
stuff, man.
one.
I guess, do we have any like closers on the first one other than just?
I understand why it's important. I understand the purity of it. I love Apu as a character and the dad, and I root for them, and I root for the sister to live. And you know, you feel for them. You become a part of this family, and you hope that the next part of their journey at the end of it is a better one. But then you start realizing, like, if history serves us well, this shit happened all the time, man. People's kids died, disease, especially in an underdeveloped country. Like, this was just a thing, you know?
That's what I wanted to bring up about like the first one is that what's so captivating about the story is how easy it is to connect with. I mean, we're living in a much different time in a different country, different language and everything, but you still connect with these characters and the family dynamics and that the strange family member that you're like, oh no, don't influence my kid this way and stuff like that. And I think it's just so unique how it's not, there doesn't need to be these life or death situations or stakes, but we can connect with the realism and the intensity of those simple things. The having a family member who's close to dying and wanting to give them tough love, but also being like, you know, you're doing the wrong things. Like I think just the universal factors found within the first one really show you what the rest of the series is going to open up into, and then
for sure
makes all the small victories feel great and all the losses feel extremely heavy.
But the road continues, right? This the reason we get into the Apu Trilogy is because Apu grows up and he lives a very unique life too, and a very lonely one at that in his teenage years already. You know, we already know that he loses a sister, and the second one, he loses both parents. And that's it. He ends up being on his own after that until we realize he's not on his own, actually. But the big kind of arc that Apu goes through in the second one is he goes to college. Yeah. You know, he wants to become a student, when in this era it was like, no, dude, you're gonna get a certain age and you're gonna work and we're gonna make money because we're broke. In fact, you're gonna step into your father's shoes because he dies. And you kind of got to be the priest now.
Yeah, what was that about? Like,
you know what's interesting? I'll bring up a quick note. In the
scholar,
priest. I don't know what the
clergyman. Yeah.
No, but back then, in the times of Jesus and everything, and maybe you might know more about it. The way that you would go to school is that you would go to school and study the Bible, but then at the end of your first years of studying, if let's say you were just a regular student, they'd say, okay, you're done, now go and practice your father's trade.
Right.
And then at that point, if you were excelled, like, best of the best, they'd send you to the next set of schooling. And then again, you would go from like reading the Bible and learning it to like memorizing every bit of it.
Yeah.
And then if you were the best of the best, then you go on to the next part.
It's really big. You're right to say that it was, Jesus' time.
Oh my God, that sounds.
It's really big in Jewish culture.
Yeah.
Specifically. I mean, there's a reason why Jesus was a carpenter, because Joseph was a carpenter. So like that whole aspect, and that's still pretty prevalent in a lot of cultures, specifically Chinese, Japanese cultures, where you're going to do what your dad did.
Yeah. But that whole notion of like following the father's trade was very big.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And it's this like, most people who were students, it's like kind of like you had to be of some kind of like really high class, or you had to be either excel and beyond
this is
what
where
the
I
normal
think
is.
the mom's arc really plays out, because the mom, this is her last kid.
Yeah.
This is your only family member that's alive. He's exposed to this like really crappy school that he's like, he just sees kids having fun and kids being kids. And he's over here studying to be a priest. And he tells mom, like, I want to go to school. And she says, why aren't you, like, school costs money. How are we going to do this? And then she's like, you know what, we'll figure it out. Because she has 2 less family members to now worry about, right? And she could probably afford it at this point. But her arc plays out where, like, this is my kid, and though I love him and I want him to be happy, he's all I got. I got to be super defensive about this, and I got to be super protective of him now.
Yeah.
And she is. But that's also limiting his perspective on the world, because while he can excel, she has the power to kind of pull him back, and he doesn't let her.
Exactly.
So this is where a lot of the autobiographical stuff comes into play for Sayaji, because he worked in a print press. Growing up, he lived in a little apartment above his grandpa's print press. And he did what Apu did in this specific, chapter of it.
Nice.
But I don't know. I feel really the coming of age factor, the arc, I think in this one is pretty amazing. The third one's my favorite one.
That's your favorite
personally.
one?
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
That's my second.
Apur Sansar, the world of Apu, is my favorite one. But Aparajito is like this really cool arc where we do see Apu become a man. In his like school days, he's already like, he's working for the print press, he's paying his bills. And the third one, we kind of discover he's a deadbeat to a certain part, right? But in the second one, it's kind of just like, no, dude, I'm gonna get the fuck out of this. I'm gonna carry my globe everywhere because I'm gonna get the fuck out of this place and discover the world and like not just be whoever, whatever. And he falls in love with literature and books and being able to do this thing where he lives on his own. And I think it's a big arc. I think it's a special arc.
I mean, it is. It is.
When we get to the city, right? This really beautiful city where the dad is a priest. Innovation. Satyajit Ray is a cinematographer. Can't give credit to him.
Yeah.
They invented bounce lighting,
Oh.
in Aparajito.
That's where it originated from?
It was invented in Aparajito. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
The boss.
The first film had a low budget. They shot on location in this little Bengali
Natural
village, natural light.
Yeah.
The second one, they had a little bit more money, right? So what they did was they knew that they were going to want to shoot a bulk of the scenes in this courtyard in their apartment, right? The courtyard where like everybody comes down and the fucking monkeys are there and they have to like fill up their water tanks or whatever.
Away.
Yeah. That's a soundstage in Calcutta.
No way.
Yeah. It's a soundstage in Calcutta.
And it feels so
What?
authentic.
It feels amazingly
Yes.
authentic. But what happened was the art director was like, we got money. We don't have to like resort to a lot of these things, just overhead lighting. And everybody else was like, then what the fuck do you mean? Because this is how it's done. This is how sound stages work. He's like, but we have control now. Why shouldn't we use control? And the cinematographer was like, yeah, I agree. Like we need to do something cool with this. Like we could really do something special. So what he did was he got reflectors and diffusers and created bounce lighting as we know it.
What?
But how, like...
I can't fathom
Yeah.
that was the one that
Look
innovated.
it up. Look it up. Aparajito was the invention of bounce lighting in cinema.
They didn't go into details, like he started off with this little...
No,
this
I didn't go that far into, like,
always
the
this.
details.
It's such a simple practice, and yet it's so foundational.
Yeah, yeah.
This is why I'm saying, like, the purity
We have
of it all.
it right
We're
there, like, I
using
mean-
his lighting
Yeah.
when we're talking about this.
Yeah,
And again,
dude,
I'm
that's
not giving
perspective
Sayaji
right there.
Ray like the credit per se, like he's the director, but the DP, who was the DP for the trilogy, by the way, came and like
Yeah, but it's
invented.
so, again, it's like
It's like inventing the wheel, man. Like
It's
that's
a
what I say. Like
little
coverage
trivia.
is something we're so like sick of at this point in cinema, but a lot of it was invented by him pointing a camera the right way, the right time, with the right lighting. And it's like
Today you learned.
down sliding was
God.
invented. Is your mind blown right now? Is mine was when I
Now you
discovered
want to
this.
see more just to
Yeah.
no,
see the.
man, because like I mean,
It's a
like,
lot of it is in this
Evolution of-
book, by the way. And
It's like saying
this-
like, oh, I built a house, and it's like I invented the brick.
yeah,
Yeah, and then it's like,
essentially.
okay.
If the
Oh,
house
damn.
is cinema, Sayaji Ray is
Good analogy.
like yeah.
And
So
it's like what?
anyways, Aparajito, just those are my
I
notes on
need
it.
to-
Again, innovation, them being able to again shoot exteriors to authenticate a soundstage that they
Yeah.
shot at. You know, so like
I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like the whole conversation, especially with the trilogy, is like, even though it's been like what, a week since we finished the
Yeah, I think
series,
so.
if not a little bit more, it resonates. This
Yeah.
simplicity, but you connect with everything
Yeah.
so well. And I think as like a filmmaker and a film lover, you wonder like, how do you do that? How do you?
It's
just
inspiring and mind-boggling all at the
this
same
whole
time. It's
thing?
inspiring because you think, dude, he didn't have anything, and he made one of the most beautiful trilogies in the world, captivating, and not just that, it stood the test of time, which is what we all want with our films, right? Is that they live.
Yeah.
That is the
Like, he did that with nothing. So if I have something, I have these cameras that we're shooting this on.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like puts us in a place where, like, dude, if you really wanted to do something special, you could.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's all inspiring and it's a little intimidating because you're like,
Yeah.
that's like they were hungry to use their limited
That's what it
resources to
is,
tell
bro.
a story, you know?
Yeah, like they
Um,
believed in this art form, and I
Yeah.
mean it's they did all this foundational stuff that now we take for granted, like everything.
Well, this is a little side note. Have you ever seen those videos where like it's kids from India mimicking or reproducing like a scene from another movie?
Yeah.
And it's like, how the hell? Like,
Wait a minute,
nothing.
the kids.
I think they're from Africa,
Yeah, I
though,
think
no?
they're from Africa.
I think it might be from Africa.
Okay, my bad.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I
No,
think,
I think I've seen some Indians though. So
I mean,
it's all
maybe.
over the world. I
I
guess.
mean, you know,
Some
wi-
kids are just-
some
Yeah.
some,
But it's exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and
They
that's-
find a
that's-
way to, you know.
and it's so cool how they do it because you can tell that it's just them getting together and they love watching their movies.
look at that,
Yeah,
not
do
for
shot by
anything.
shot
Like,
with, like, their phone
we're
and
gonna
everything.
we have to be very grateful of our lives and the position
yes,
we're in.
absolutely.
But
That makes me.
would I have been a better artist by growing up in a situation
Probably.
like that?
I
You know
mean,
what I'm saying?
yeah, I
Like
get
it's
what
one of
you're
those
saying. I
things
get
where
what you're
like this is why like foreign cinema, modern foreign cinema looks down on Americans, dude, because they're like, you never had hardships, you grew up next to a McDonald's or
that's
whatever.
true.
And then-
I mean, I get it to a certain point. I
That's the
guess.
thing. You gotta you. I think the greatest people were the ones who got very little and made the most of it.
Yeah.
And we're just hoping to do the same because
Yeah.
I mean, you know, even though we live around these luxuries. And,
No. You
I
guys
just got a new
started with
camera, the
small-
new
Yeah,
We
right.
started.
Now, did Aparajito do anything special for you guys or anything like that? I mean, any notes before we move on to the last one?
I really wanted to dive into these. I thought they were metaphors, and I felt like I just wasn't getting it or understanding, and that's why I want to dive back in. But a lot of the religious factors, a lot of the
Yeah, that's what I was telling you.
especially like the cinematography where
By
you
the
see
river and stuff
Apu,
like that.
yeah, walking past the river, and you're seeing different groups of people, but the way that they're saying the same, I guess, kind of religious text is different from person to person,
Yeah.
and it shows this dynamic of how
Oh, shit.
everybody's affected as individuals. It was a little subtlety, but I felt like it kind of it brings up the feelings that we all get, where it's kind of like when something bad happens, you're screaming into the air and you're hoping something answers back. And,
I saw that factor with Mom, where she tells him to go get the water.
yeah.
The dad's on his deathbed.
Oh,
Like, go to
yeah.
the river and get some water. Get the water because that water is supposed to be holy.
Exactly.
You know,
Oh my
so-
goodness! And also
Yeah.
the cut of the dad
Which one?
dying, and then the
birds.
birds and all that kind of stuff.
Again,
I thought of you.
innovation.
And I
Like,
was.
yeah.
It's so simple.
How many
It's-
times have we seen that though now?
Oh, you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere.
Somebody
that-
shoots
Yeah.
themselves and then fucking
Yeah.
birds fly out. Like,
This is where
not
it
only
came
birds,
from.
this whole like notion of
Like a match cut to-
match cutting to something bigger.
Yeah.
And And then the poetry behind it, it's so simple, but you know,
there's a lot of this language. By the way, if you get a chance to see Satyajit Ray's Devi, it's a goddess, an Indian goddess who basically a servant in a rich house basically gets convinced that she is the new iteration of this goddess in modern time, and she gets that in her head, and then people will like come and worship her, and then
some people
she gets disproven. There's this whole thing, but it's really good. My point is the religious connotations of like what's real, what isn't, what's honored, what isn't. Another thing that I'd point, just watch Devi for those, but another thing I'd point out is like, you're right about the different people talking about different things in different ways. And to me, that was just an allegory to religion in general. Yeah. Most people are talking about the same fucking thing.
They're all like preaching on the same river.
But it's like different churches, right? Yeah. Literally what we see now is like different churches preaching the same message, but different, but claim that their way is the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's kind of the religious kind of permeation. So I thought that was cool. But it's that dad, by the way, is an actor. The dad. I thought he's fantastic.
But was he an actor or not an actor?
I don't know.
Damn, if
I think he might have been like the theater actor before when he was casted.
Yeah, because I could see the grandma was not an actor. The mom was, you know.
But even like the non-actors, I guess that's why the first one feels like a documentary.
No, but the dad I think was probably my second favorite actor in the whole thing. And
who was your first one? Apu or the mom?
Apu and the third one.
Apu and the third one for sure, dude. He's such a I hate him, dude.
Yeah,
I hate him.
Fantastic, man.
But I mean, at the end,
he looks like Tony Rivoli, but like he's so good. Anyways. Let's go into Apur Sansar, the world of Apu.
Wait, before we do, can we talk about our favorite scene?
Which one?
From the second one. When the headmaster's giving him the books. And he's like, do you want to learn? And then he just starts bringing all the books down. And we're like, that's Carlos with us.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. Apparently, like, you want to learn? Here's the Satyajit Ray book.
He just like keeps like passing him
just
books
passing
like,
shit,
you
want to learn about the North Pole?
Here you go.
By the way, I'm gonna point this little fun fact out because I think it's so important. I don't know if it's a stretch or not, but I was reading something that really caught my attention about the second one that sets up the third one.
You're just scrolling through Instagram.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna read it. There's a classroom scene where the teacher asks Apu about the word synecdoche. A rather lesser figure of speech. Apur Sansar, the word of Apu itself, is a type of synecdoche and could be the reason why Satyajit Ray chose this word to be used in a classroom. Yeah, so just to get the Webster definition right of synecdoche. A synecdoche is a figure of speech in which a part is made to represent the whole or vice versa. So like Cleveland won by 6 runs, meaning Cleveland's baseball team, right? So like it's condensing.
Yeah.
So like the third one, if you think about, is this wraparound of who Apu turned into and became. And it's like, do you know the word? What this means? It was just like a little callback. But in Satyajit's defense, he wasn't ever thinking about a third one.
He wasn't? Okay.
No. So again, remember in the books, the third film is the first part of the second book. That's it, just the first part. Like he was just like,
what do you mean? Like
expanding on this idea of, what if he did this?
But what he said on the second book, like the first part of the second book, which the second part, there's nothing.
No, well, like there's nothing of value to it. Satyajit.
I was gonna say, so just call it a second book. No?
Like, so
because I think it ends off on him taking in this kid and starting that new chapter, which that could. Yeah.
Where again, man, but like even this kid was so.
That scene made me cry. Yeah.
That kid is just like so out of place. He all he wants in this life is to meet his real father, who they tell is coming one day. And so like it's a crazy bit, right? Like Apur Sansar, we go through the journey of. Imagine getting invited by a friend to a wedding. And then be like, dude, the groom didn't fucking show up, but can you kind of like
that's insane.
That's India, bro.
But that is India.
That's India, bro.
That is India, right? In the place of arranged marriages.
Exactly.
It's like, well, I'll probably be married tomorrow.
That's insane.
And again,
insane,
Apu would have probably been arranged to be married because
I respect it.
But his parents were dead. Like he couldn't
insane,
be,
But it's also a universal factor of imagine yourself being in that situation, and you have to think of yourself not as an individual anymore, but as a unit with this person.
Oh.
Think about this arc.
Okay.
Because it totally piggybacks off that. Think about this arc. Cut to your camera right now. Think about this arc. Apu loved his independence when he thought it was being stripped away from him. When he thought his village, his mom were enclosing him in this world that he didn't want to stay of. He wanted to see the world. And then once he got the freedom, because the last family member of his family dies, the mom, now he has all the freedom he wants. And he's enjoying it. He's in college. He's learning. He's reading books. He's going with friends. He's going to trips with friends.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest arc is like Apu lost his entire family.
Yeah.
So the reason why he's so quick to marry this girl is because he wants to start a family of his own. He wants to be part of a unit again. He didn't get to see that fact. His mom died when he was a teenager. You know, like he didn't get to fulfill having a family past these years.
You know, and even
so that arc of like, oh, okay,
and then,
fuck it, like
yeah. Like I need somebody right now.
yeah.
Also, he didn't really get like a formal goodbye. It was just kind of
With
like
any of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
All of them were just these kind of like, and I missed it.
Fleeting, right? Like the sister dying. I mean, that was a little bit of a slow burn, but he was a kid. What the fuck was he going to do or say? The dad, he was literally running to get him water when he died.
Yeah.
And then coming back to his dad being dead. And then the mom, him being off on a train and getting word, or in college on getting word, like, so that arc to me is massive.
True.
That's why that end scene is so punchy. It's like, well, the love of my life died. Everybody in my life who I love has died. Fuck this. I'm not going to be a part of this anymore because the kid's going to die too. And then being like, well, I could still be that for the kid because then the kid won't get to experience it.
That's what I was feeling.
You know?
That's what I was like, oh man.
And I think for anybody who's had a shaky relationship with your father, you see this shit and you're like,
yes.
fuck. You know, so it's
But
like,
he starts walking away and then he comes back. And I'm like, I
and
think
then
that
you
was my
see
dad,
the
bro.
eyes in the ex-father-in-law or whatever, like,
Yeah.
like he probably died on the doorstep type of thing. Like he just needed the kid to
Yeah.
be, all right, I can like.
He was barely holding on just to.
And so yeah, I just think that arc is amazing. I think
That is a good arc.
I think that to pay attention to that is like, I need to rewatch the whole fucking trilogy again because it's leading up to this moment. It's leading up to him becoming his own father figure almost, and like his own unit. And by the way, the story with him and I think her name is Aparna, the girl. My gosh, man, to be arranged in a marriage and then to fall in love and then to get into this financial trope of marriage and like, I don't have money and, you know, you came from a fucking big ass house on the beach to this little shack above a print press. Like, and then they fall in love in a very pure, beautiful way. And she supports, she gets pregnant and he writes a novel because she's going to go off and be with the mom for a little bit. And then at childbirth, man, he punches that motherfucker in the face, too, just to, like, she died in sass, you know, like.
That poor guy.
Poor guy. It was just the definition of don't shoot the messenger, man. But, like, fuck. You know?
But it's understandable.
I know, but
you
it's
feel
real.
it.
It's real, and you feel it, and then you feel that messenger getting popped in the face.
Again, but I don't think that was scripted, by the way. That moment.
He
that moment.
really died. No, I'm kidding.
Jeez, no, but yeah, just again that arc through that third. I think that's why the third one just like punches the most for me and resonates the most with me. Yeah, because we see the beginning of that journey for him, all the way to heartbreak, all the way to like, I could be a good guy, you know, and I could rectify what happened to me as a kid, you know. Yeah, that's in a very small nutshell, the Apu Trilogy. But yeah, I mean, again, so yeah, G just had
I'm definitely gonna put my rating up a little bit.
Yeah. I think we're at that part, gentlemen. We're about 70 minutes in. Anything.
Do you have like a special thing to show?
I do have a special thing
but
to
are you
show.
going to show at the very end or right
I
now?
can't, yes, because I'm going to read from it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm going to read the whole thing to you guys.
I don't even want to touch it.
In the beginning
I
of
don't touch this.
time.
In the beginning.
This is Debbie, by the way. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Debbie, the goddess who, like, go check out Debbie.
Different cultures, man. I'm
Debbie Reynolds?
Yeah.
So, Castro, rating. You left us at an 8?
I left you guys in an 8.
It's 6:45.
Time moves differently.
Oh, look, there's the kid.
Wow.
There's the shoulder. There's the Wes Anderson shot.
The Wes Anderson. No, the Saiyajin Ray shot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Anderson stole it shot.
It's terrific work, man.
Not
No, but yeah,
inspired.
Stolen. This is
Yeah.
this is
Brett
pure.
being a film from the
This
1950s.
relationship, man. Like I could.
Jeez,
Most
I
of you are
love that.
fucking hoping Kanye stays with Kim, man. I'm hoping
that,
fucking
man.
Anyways.
No, but I know what you mean.
So what do you think?
No, man. I
Did
mean,
it go down?
no, I went up for sure. I'll probably get an 8.4, just cause. Man, the story was pretty good. I mean, at first I thought it was kind of slow and
Simple, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm just looking at it like that from an audience perspective. But just the actors were alone. Like my favorite was Apu, the first one, the when he's older for sure. Even the kid,
The third one, you mean?
Yeah, but when he's a
third.
kid too. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
But when he's a grown up for sure, he's an asshole. The dad for sure, the mom, the grandma. What did you guys think of the grandma?
She was fun, man.
She was
I loved
great.
watching her.
She
And
was-
then I think it just really kind of it grounded his sister in
Yeah.
just we. Like I said, it felt so natural because we have relatives or grandparents, and we don't care what they look like, but they have that connection with us or connection with
Exactly.
kids and stuff like that. And I guess it just felt so genuine, like you weren't off put by her in any way. You were like,
and here's a question for you: did it feel like most of the shots were just like photographs, not cinema, but like photographs, like portraits?
I thought I asked this question
I
when
think you
we
did
when we were first
watching
watching it because the aspect ratio felt very 4:6. Which
Yeah,
is like,
yeah.
it
See,
felt-
I'm noticing that.
Yeah, it felt very much like
Yeah.
a picture frame and like
Yeah.
just capturing these moments in time and a lot of that probably goes back to like the dimensions of the film stock and why it feels that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think looking back now, these are the kind of things that we remember because then when you want to recreate this emotion in your own
Yeah.
works, this is what you're referencing back to, that
Yeah.
type of shot composition, aspect ratio, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why it definitely goes up 8.4. It's just for somebody that didn't know much about a camera, it was his first time, 4 years, still working in a marketing company,
Yeah.
finding time to do this.
And making something just so,
And exactly,
Beautiful, yeah.
exactly, make it beautiful, not just like, oh, okay, he tried.
yeah.
He inspired a lot of film directors from today. So yeah, 8.4 definitely goes
So
up.
all that is only worth 0.4.
Yeah. And
From
the
a
his-
seven?
Literally everything
the
you just
history
listed.
of the history of cinema
Team
is
up.
pretty rad. Let's give it 0.4.
0.4.
Yeah.
I definitely went down to at least a 3. I don't like the kid.
I butchered it.
I don't
just,
like the arc. I think
just the way he
that-
explained it, huh? It was just kind of
Yeah, there was that weird thing where they went to go watch like that show and they're actors on a stage. Nah, I hate it. No,
like.
I
The train
I,
kept coming and the train left, and it was
honestly, it's staying at a 9. Not because I don't feel like our conversation added anything. I feel like it's just gonna go up on its own as I rewatch it and as I see
that's
it.
pretty good. Yeah, that is true.
That's kind of like
That's
it's
true.
gonna age with me, and
Just-
as it ages, then I'll have a different rating because right
That is
now
pretty
everything
true.
the conversation was saying was just reiterating how there's something so special about this, but I need to
Again, yeah,
dive into
it really is just this weird thing where it's like,
Gotta
It's
watch
not
it
like
again.
it's not like a film like we were saying. It's not like one of those films where you watch it and then you're like, oh, I didn't get that part, and then once we explain,
No,
you're
no,
like,
no.
oh, I
No,
got
yeah.
that. It's kind of like
I
no,
got that.
Exactly.
But what's so special about what's.
Yeah.
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 So
So what was your
9,
9? Still
9.
stayed at 9.
9.
Austin, man,
You're still a 10.
Still 10.
still 10.
I feel like you really didn't get to say anything about this, and this is one of your only 10s.
What's your favorite one?
The second one was definitely my favorite
The
one.
second
second
was
one?
your favorite one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool.
It's
What-
very
do you have
coming of
anything-
age and
yeah.
really inspires a lot of like the new coming of age films.
Yeah,
Just how
for sure.
the transition. Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about the Apu Trilogy as a whole? I mean, just this is,
I don't think it's for everybody, but
I
for
agree.
real cinema lovers, you do need to experience it.
yeah, you need to experience it
Yeah,
at
there
least
we go.
once,
Yeah.
right? It's
There
a
we go.
bucket list thing. Yeah. Oh,
It's gonna be hard to like
Yeah, that's
sell this
Yeah.
to like your dad, right?
Yeah,
right,
definitely.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but to real cinema lovers,
have
I
to
think
be
it's
us.
definitely needed.
To
so you
people
can
who want to
see-
be filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Costro.
You said a 9, and it looks
I
like
think I said a 9.5, right?
Oh,
9.5.
9.5?
I'm on that.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right.
9.5 for me stays, man. Like, I
Is
was
it the
just-
same thing?
yeah.
You have to sit with it.
Yeah, no, I'm still thinking about this fucking trilogy. I'm still thinking about what makes it so great. And then you realize, when you start realizing, like, again, your favorite directors to come and, like, people have written books about him. He's written books about him. Like, he's an author, he's a composer, he's a science fiction writer, he's a novelist, he's a writer, like, he's a screenwriter. But yeah, man, I think just Satyajit Ray is one of the unsung heroes of cinema, and people are slowly forgetting about him. And there's at the same time this really cool revival of like people getting back into foreign cinema and classic cinema. Satyajit Ray is just awesome. I want to give my wife a shout out for getting me this book because
She knows her husband.
not only does she know her husband, but I, ladies and gentlemen, in my hands hold a real piece
get
of
out of here.
cinematic history,
Get outta here.
an autographed Satyajit Ray biography.
I don't even want to touch
by
it.
the man. I don't even want to touch
even
this.
touch it, bro.
I know, dude. Like, no, I already bought a case for it.
Yeah.
Legitimately, but I just wanted to bring it on the podcast. But this is him signed in English, and then is his signature in Bengali. And so, like,
It's incredible.
this
dope,
is
dude.
the
Twice,
Academy Award. Like, the Academy Archive should have this in their museum. This is
At some
fucking
point in
so
time,
special to me.
it's gonna get
Yeah,
there,
they're gonna
right?
need you. to,
yeah. This is so special to me. Like, this is just awesome. My wife got it for me for Christmas, and I've been waiting. But this was in El Paso.
Can we just
This was in a bookshop in El Paso that,
Can we
like,
give a shout out to the bookshop
yes,
because they're also
literarity.
preserving.
Literarity is preserving literature that matters. And shout out to Bill, man, because anytime there's an interesting film book, he just thinks of me. If he doesn't think of me, he thinks of Chuck. And Chuck literally told me, I showed him this. And I was like, because we're always like, dude, Chuck has an amazing collection of everything, right? And
Oh, okay.
I showed him, I was like, hey, man, do you see that I got this? And he's like, yeah, Bill told me he like sold it to you. I was like, because he's friends with Bill too. He's like, you're lucky I didn't know about it. Because if I would have known about it, it would have been in my collection already. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I told Bill to leave it in the back cases of his like most protected books and that I would come back for it.
Yeah.
And then Sandra got it for me for Christmas. So, but no, one of the quotes that's very famous about Satyajit Ray that I'm going to read right now is...
You're blocking your microphone.
Akira Kurosawa said, "The quiet but deep observation, understanding, and love of the human race, which are characteristic of all his films, have impressed me greatly. Mr. Ray is a wonderful and respectful man. I feel that he is a giant of the movie industry." In the back of the book, you have a picture of Satyajit Ray and Akira Kurosawa together.
Wow.
Hey.
Two greats, two legends of cinema.
And next to them
and
is
a
a tower.
Us
We
right there.
cinema.
That's the end,
We
folks.
cinema.
We can't finish it up better than
I
that.
want to finish up the podcast with
Yeah.
another Kurosawa quote. He says, "Never to have seen a Satyajit Ray film is like never having seen the sun or the moon."
Anyway.
That's how deep
That's heavy.
Akira Kurosawa respects this man. So if that tells you anything, if you like Akira Kurosawa and you like Seven Samurai or Rashomon or anything by this,
If you like anything in general,
Exactly.
this man,
Yeah.
Better put.
So
freaking diffuse lighting.
diffuse lighting, yeah.
Give me
Go watch this.
Please go watch
Please
it.
go watch the Apu
Please.
Trilogy. Please
And-
keep
and-
the
and,
Apu Trilogy alive, type of deal.
Remember, because you're gonna watch it, and again, this is it's a really hard thing to describe.
Yeah.
You're not gonna know exactly what it is about the film. You're gonna see it, and you're gonna connect with the story. You're gonna connect with the
Just
kids,
connect with
and,
the story, yeah.
and you're gonna connect with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until you sit and realize, like, damn, like how do you make people connect this heavy to something? That's what makes it special.
Yeah.
And that's what we're sitting with, is the fact that in its simplicity and its purity, we were able to connect with it,
Yeah.
regardless of language, regardless of everything,
Yeah,
and then just feel
absolutely.
the
Beautiful.
human element of it.
And I know Castro loves this quote, but as director Bong Joon-ho
Oh.
Waka flocka flocka
said, waka
waka.
flocka waka. Thank you for tuning into the watch. What he says, once you get past the 1-inch border of subtitles, you're going to be exposed to such amazing cinema.
And it is so true, dude. I have seen so many films afterwards that, oh my God.
So thank you guys for tuning into the WatchTower. Go watch the Apu Trilogy. Go watch more.
And
Give it a
Satyajit
try. Give it a
cinema.
try. The
If
first
you're
one.
still listening and for some reason you haven't subscribed to
It's
our
right
content,
there. It's like right there. Like,
Yeah,
right,
it's
right
somewhere.
There. It's right there.
Yeah.
There's somewhere.
yeah, in the YouTube and the audios.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for joining us on this journey again through cinema. I don't know what's
Cinema.
next.
I don't think we have one next yet because we're going to Las Cruces, so that's definitely coming out next. And then when we come back, we want to do some really cool episodes too for like the 50th and for the Sight and Sound poll, which we've been announcing for them.
Cafe? Or was that last month?
That was last month because we're not doing a film cafe till we come back from Cruces.
Oh, okay.
And that will be the Cable Guy,
Oh,
which we have announced.
Cable Guy.
Cable Guy at the Film
Cable
Cafe.
Guy.
It's going to be the second Friday of May, I think.
Second Friday of May.
Hopefully.
TBD.
TBD.
Thank you guys for tuning into the WatchTower podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Bye.